Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us. Please feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat room. Say hi, and thank you so much for joining us on this morning. Just to let you know, this webinar is being recorded. It's also being streamed on YouTube. If you didn't manage to register, or if you just let someone else know about this webinar going on right now, please feel free to share it across. I'm really glad you could join us, and thank you so much for taking the time to, let's listen now to what people have to say in terms of how we rethink training and learning in the current environment and the future that we go into. So welcome to the Future Skills webinar series. It's a continuation of where we try to cover discussions and ideas in navigating the future of skills, education, and training. It's a constantly changing environment, and it's made even more crazy given the current pandemic and given the current changes that's going through. So we're hoping that the series that we're doing, it's a succession of webinars, workshops, online events that enables an active conversation amongst training practitioners, L&D experts, and any educator from that perspective as well. We'll be looking to highlight case studies. We'll be looking to have conversations about best practices, especially as how online training or online conversations or new ways of educating comes into play. This webinar is also a satellite event organized in conjunction with MDEC's My Digital Workforce Week as part of the agenda to promote digital talent as well. So today, just kind of walk you through a little bit. I would like to just introduce myself. My name is Sarvin Kandia. I'm the Managing Director for Open Learning ASEAN. Open Learning is an online learning platform that really is trying to change the way we scale and improve access to high quality education. And we do that by actually helping educators and training companies and universities, colleges to reimagine how online delivery should look like. It's a tool, it's a platform that people use to kind of design, author, deliver any program that they want to, everything from accredited programs to corporate training, to MOOCs, to micro-credentials. We work with any educator and any training company to kind of help them go online. So if you ever need help digitizing, or if you ever need help to move online, please feel free to reach out to us as well. But more importantly, today it's all about our speakers, and it's all about how they see things moving forward in terms of online learning and online training, as well as internal training across the entire ecosystem in Malaysia as we move forward. Just some housekeeping before we start. This video is being recorded and is also being streamed on YouTube. This will be sent to you as part of the registration post of the event. So please don't worry about taking down notes too quickly. There will be pop-up questions that come out across the way. Please feel free to answer them. It kind of helps us kind of guide the questions and answers as well. If you have any questions for the panelists, please feel free to put it in the Q&A box below. We will try to get through as many questions as possible, but fret not. If there are any questions that we can't get to, we will still check in with our panelists after the event, and we'll try to answer as many as we can as we send the follow-up email along with the recording for this video. All right. So without further ado, panelists, if you don't mind turning on your videos. For everyone, let's meet our panelists, right? First up, we have a whole series of speakers lined up for you today. First, we have Mr. Ronnie Ambrose, who is the Chief Programs Officer in HRD Corp. He's been in the human capital development field for almost 20 years, and he's been on the forefront of how HRD Corp has grown tremendously. He's currently paving the way for HRD as it embarks on its new generation of growth, looking at how different aspects of the ecosystem that HRD Corp can play. Moving forward, we have Ms. Sukling, who is the Executive Director at SHRVC. She's a huge advocate of competency-based learning with over 10 years of experience in training assessment. She's also a master trainer and a certified HRD Corp trainer as she oversees the overall aspects and the leading of the center that she's currently running. she and a team is one of the leading companies actually to kind of take this current environment and develop quickly and just make changes drastically to kind of adapt to the new norm of training and learning. Thank you so much for joining us as well. Next, we have Mr. Siva Kumaran, who is the Chief Operating Officer for Taloncorp. Siva has been in the forefront of immigration research and development for the longest time. He was responsible for setting up the Malaysian Expatriate Services Center. And now in his current role, he oversees Mynex, which is Taloncorp's latest platform. It's an all-in-one platform that brings students, companies, schools, the workforce together as an integrated solution and analytics platform. And finally, we have Mr. Kamal Nawawi, who is the head of Axiata Fast Forward. He brings a whole host of experience from every aspect of the education world, from the higher education space to the training space to government sector to even agencies now. And now he's currently spearheading Axiata's movement towards how do we rethink employee training and employee development as a whole across the region. So we have an exciting lineup, everyone from government agencies who are paving the way in terms of how our ecosystem is moving forward. We've got actual trainers who are changing the landscape in terms of how they are offering training in this current environment. We even have someone who has done it all in terms of both education and policy, and is currently leading an MNC in terms of how they look at upskilling, training, and overall development of people. Let's get started. And just to kind of kick things off, we're going to go around the table to let each panelist introduce themselves and talk about what they're doing and talk about what currently they're working on, so that kind of spur more questions for you as well. Without further ado, I would like to invite Mr. Ronnie to kind of take over for now.
Thank you, Sarvin. And good morning, everybody. I hope my audio and video is clear.
Yes, it is.
I will. The challenge being the first speaker of the day is that I will have to make yourself interested to what I'm going to talk about. So I hope that I will be entertaining all of you. And of course, since I've been asked to introduce myself and what I do, so I would like to take this opportunity to actually show some of our activity here in programs division that we are doing. If you don't mind, Sabin, can I just show the screen?
No problem.
Okay, I hope everybody would be able to see this. So this is just one part of what HRD Corp is all about. Yeah. So just be mindful that my presentation is only about the programs division under the HRD Corp, while HRD Corp is more larger than what I'm going to present to you. But nonetheless, to start with, allow me to just introduce HRD Corp in a glance. HRD Corp, previously known as the Human Resource Development Fund or HRDF, we are actually agency under the Ministry of Human Resources. Our main mandate is actually to govern and administer the Human Resource Development Levy, which the industries whom businesses are described under the Act are paying levy and utilize that levy for training purposes. So under HRD Corp, we have quite a number, we have several divisions, of which I'm heading the programs division, which I'm going to share with you in a while, maybe around a few minutes. Yeah. So under my purview, there are 5 functions that we are looking at actually. We have the training department, where the training department is actually dealing and managing all aspects of employer submissions for training grant, as well as employer submissions for claim for reimbursement of training costs. Yeah. And the second department is the training market department. This is where all the training providers as well as the training courses are being registered and administered. They also supervise and look after the trainers development framework. I'm sure quite a number of you here might be familiar with the trainers development framework, the trainer certification as well under this department. And we also have the research and development department, where they look into, these are the people who work behind the scene. If you look, if this is a hotel, for example, most of us go to the buffet area, right? But these R&D are the one who are actually doing all the cutting, the catching of chicken and what's not behind. So most of you won't be seeing them all the time, but they are behind there. They are studying and they are looking at the best practices, both at the national as well as the international arena. So they will be putting forward recommendations. They will be identifying what are the gaps that we currently have in Malaysia, which we have learned from other countries, for example. And moving towards the next department, we have the Program Review and Accreditation Department. This is a newly set up department in 2020, where they, among others, they are looking at the micro-credential, the implementation, as well as the development of HRD Corp micro-credential framework. And the last department, which is also a new department being set up last year, is the Learning Technology Department, where they look into areas like digital learning, learning tech ecosystem, and what's not. So quickly moving to the first Research and Development Department. As far as Research and Development Department is concerned, their scope of work goes by the acronym of IDEAS, which they start with the identification of the training needs and training requirements of the industry, where they continuously engage the industry through several platforms. We do have like sectorial training committees as well as the industry expert committees, where all these committees are actually comprised of members from the industry. In fact, the sectorial training committees are chaired by the industry themselves, and from that committees they come out with a document which we call as the Industrial Skill Framework, where the document is actually guide us on which area of funding that we need to focus on the next 1 or 2 years. Of course, we have so many qualifications related courses out there, skills related courses, but in that particular subsectors, let's say for example, oil and gas, manufacturing of rubbers product and what's not, for the next 1 or 2 years, which area of learning that they are focusing. So those are the information that being identified through this document. And of course, we have Design Lab, the team that is responsible to monitor the implementation of initiative, whether we should continue with it or whether it is need to be abolished and whether new things need to be created. We have the Solution Lab, the Evaluation Unit, where of course the Solution Lab and the Solution Lab works together with all labs under HRD Corp, where they look at the process improvement and what's not. Evaluation Unit, the unit that actually look into the output and outcome assessment of every courses and initiative run under HRD Corp. And last but not least, we have the Community Development team, where they are studying a specific group requirement. Like say, for example, currently we are looking at B40 groups of all community level, what types of requirement that they are needing. So these are the functions in short that the research and development team is doing. And as what I highlighted earlier, also under our purview is the training department, where this particular department administers and manages all the schemes under the levy funding that currently being made available to our employers. I'm sure as a cost creator and programs owner yourself, you are aware of all these schemes. We have like SBL Khas, Scheme Bantuan Latihan, and what's not. So all the schemes are actually administered by this department. And the next department is what I highlighted. This one is the training market department. I'm sure most of you are well known with Sofian. Sofian is the head of the department, and they are particularly looking at the course administration, both at the training providers level as well as the course itself. And we are going to do a lot of improvements to the work processes that are involved in this department as we go along. I'm sure some of you might have come across our notification that moving forward, all HRD Corp courses will only be known as HRD Corp claimable courses. So they're no more, moving forward, they're no more going to be like SBL scheme, SBL Khas scheme, and then SLB schemes, Sim Latihan Bersama, which I think due to the maturity of the learning industry. Now these schemes, the segregation of schemes to 3 different types may be relevant in the past, But as we are all matured after 28 years, the specific segregations are no longer relevant. So we are moving to a just singular identification, which is HRD Corp claimable causes. Yeah. And how does it work? The HRD Corp claimable causes will embed the flexibility of SBL scheme, where you can change and in what's not, using the payment method of SBL has. Yeah. So we are moving toward that. We are not there. We are not there yet completely, because there are so many other adjustments that we need to do. It is not easy to modify a 28 years system in one shot. Yeah. So bear with us, but we are moving there very, very soon. And that is under the purview of this department. And for the PRAD, the program division, which I just would like to highlight here, is that on the micro-credential. Yeah, I think some of you are very well vast experience and well-learned people. As you are aware that for the past 28 years, there are quite a number of thousands of courses that already being funded by HRD Corp mechanism. Nonetheless, 94% of them are generic courses in nature, and only nearly around 6% are actually leading to certification. Yeah. So if there's one thing that the pandemic taught us, is one lesson into 2020, when more than 76,000 of our Malaysian workers are being retrenched, which most of them are already in the industry and learning for many, many years, and they have compiled so many certificates for attending courses. But during that time, they were not able to use that courses to actually either to pursue their study or to acquire a new qualifications, because there is no bridge between the short courses and what are being recognized by the universities or even the skill centers, right? So this is where the needs of linking these two quadrants together. And HRD Corp is coming or has developed what we call the HRD Corp micro-credential framework, which we are working hand in hand with the MQA as well as DSD, the Department of Skills Development, that will link to the route of SKMs, and for MQA, we link to the route of Malaysian Qualification Framework. Yeah. So this is something that coming very, very soon under this department. And last but not least, yet to be included in this slide is on the learning technology department, where they are looking at the implementation of new learning platform like eLatte and eVenue and so forth. Yeah, so we are moving toward those direction. I think it is relevant to today's topic of our training and workplace learning in the new norm. In short, many things we need to change, and HRD Corp being the organization then being mandated to oversee the learning and development of workforce in Malaysia, we are doing our very best to cope with the changes. Yeah. So today, perhaps before I pass to Sarvin, I will be more than glad to answer all the questions that related to HRD Corp. Thank you, Sarvin. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Ronnie. Ladies and gentlemen, I think if you are a training company or if you're an education provider, I think Mr. Ronnie is the best person to kind of float all your questions to. Just listening to the overview of everything under his purview, there's a lot of things in terms of trying to help trainers change, help trainers adapt, and also how help trainers kind of like pave the way in between higher education as well as the corporate training market. So, everyone, if you have a lot of questions, please feel free to put it in the Q&A. I think Mr. Ronnie has kind of touched on a lot of different things that he kind of covers. So please feel free to put that in. And thank you so much. Mr. Ronnie will come back with a lot of questions after this. Next, we have Ms. Sukling, who is the Executive Director for SHRDC. Please feel free to take it away.
Thanks. Thank you, Sarvin. Hello, good morning, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity for us to share our experience in this webinar. Just a quick intro about SHRDC. I'm not sure whether most of the listener here know about SHRDC or have heard about SHRDC or not. But I just want to share with you, we are already in the market, in the training market for 29 years. Founded in 1992, and our training center is right in Shah Alam. All right, we are a very lean organization with only 38 full-time employees, of which about a quarter of us are full-time technical specialists. We call them technical specialists, and they are also our full-time trainers. And the rest are our administration, sales and marketing team, and management team. And 29 years in the business, we do not keep many full-time trainers simply because we believe in offering training that is relevant to the industry and up to date. So our trainers are all registered with us as freelance trainers. So we take trainers who are currently working in the industry or are already currently offering programs, but is still relevant and current to the current needs. All right, so we have about 150 registered trainers, and we have trained over 95 participants in the past 29 years. All right, so we cover from manufacturing, aerospace, ICT, solar, big data, and Industry 4.0. So these are the areas that we offer. All right, in terms of accreditation and recognition, of course, we are HRD Corp accredited center, JPK accredited center, SEDA appointed training provider as well, and IPC, this is a US-based certification body where they offer training programs or certification for semicon standards. Then recently, we also, in 2015, we are in partnership with Swiss Smart Factory as well to offer the Industry 4.0 program. We are also an ISO certified center. In terms of our stakeholders, we are not a company, we are not a Sendirian Berhad. We are set up as a society, and our stakeholders are 32 member companies from the industries, the state government and the federal government as well. So the next slide here is to show you when we were set up in 1992, these three parties come together to set up skill center. So the first skill center was set up in Penang, then SHRVC, and then we have Negeri Sembilan and other states as well. So if you look at the whole of Malaysia, there are a total of 13 skills centers just like us, right? But ours we are based in Selangor, so we serve the Selangor industry. If you look at the bottom, those are our council members. So we are governed by the council. And in 1992, when we were set up, the key focus is to address the need of skilled worker at that time. All right, so that time we have MNCs coming in, setting up factories in Selangor, but there were not enough skilled worker to serve the industry, right? So that you will see attritions of staff from a factory next to each other, over 20 or 30 ringgit increment, not just operators level, or 50 ringgit increment for technician level. But so it's not healthy for the industry as well. So what we do is during that time, Tun M also mentioned that it is time to set up a skill center to address this need, to address the need of preparing local talents, upskill them or skills them to meet the need of the industry. That's how skill centers were started in the 90s. Until today, we are still doing this. The objective are still the same, but because the industry in Selangor has diversified, therefore in SHRVC, if you look at the past 29 years, our programs has also diversified according to the industries as well. All right, so we started to serve the manufacturing, and then we go into industrial automation, and then we support the plastic industry, then microsystem, solar, and now we're talking about the Industry 4.0 programs, which is our core, right now, our core programs in SHRVC. So 29 years, we don't just stay at the manufacturing, but we progress as per what the industry in Selangor need. And we are always looking ahead of 1 or 2 years ahead of time, preparing what the industry may need in the next 1 or 2 years. All right, so we will start doing research and program development and talking to industry first and to create our content just to meet the industry needs. So we see our programs progress as per the industry's requirement. Our role is basically very clear, we lead transformation through training. So in SHRDC, we have two parts, two divisions. The first division is, of course, just on talent development, we provide training. But on the other division, we have a lab called the Malaysian Smart Factory. All right, so Malaysian Smart Factory is set up by the state government in SHRDC with the purpose of with the purpose of having technology visible to the industry and also to maybe academic students as well. All right, so when we talk about Industry 4.0, we talk about the 11 pillars, we talk about the technologies. It's just word and it's just diagram. A lot of the industry players, they cannot imagine how big data can help them in their operation. They cannot imagine, what is cyber physical system. They can't imagine all this. So when we set up the lab, the Malaysian Smart Factory Lab, we actually we set up a demo production line and demonstrate this technology so that they are able to understand how these 11 pillars work in this one lab. All right, so we set up this lab, and our programs, when we talk about the Industry 4.0 programs, we don't talk about theory, we talk about the hands-on approach. So when you talk about integration of IT and OT, how does it work? And we teach you how to do it hands-on, not so much on the theory, but the hands-on side. Therefore, our division on the Smart Factory, we have a lab to demonstrate the technology. We also have the lab for you to apply this technology at the workplace. All right, this is our role. And in terms of program development, we are not like university or colleges where we have a standard curriculum and it is no choice. You sign up for this program, you have to go through this program. When we develop our content, we always begin with an end in mind. The end in mind here is about what is the industry problem statement, what is your pain point, and how do you want to address this pain point in terms of your talent, in terms of your people solving this problem. All right, so we look at the industry problem, then we go back to the cycle of curation of competencies required, and then when we teach, we always teach the application of the competency, meaning that we don't do just theory. 70% of our programs are hands-on, right? So we curate the program. When we teach, we make sure there's application, there's hands-on component in it. Then we always go back to the industry and get them to endorse and to give us an idea of whether this competency meets exactly their need or not. So this cycle is continuous, and our program progress according to the industry's feedback. All right. So at the end of the day is when we teach our programs, our participant will have what the industry need, and will also have the case study or project that is relevant to a real industry application. It is not something that we create just for training, but it's something that we create because we have heard about industry problem. If it's a in-house program, it is better we will understand what is your in-house need, and then we will then curate our competencies, our activities accordingly to meet the requirement. So it's industry-driven competency model. This is how we create our program. We work closely with industry, and at the same time, not only to understand their need, but also to provide them with the talents that we produce. SHRDC, we also obtain some training grants from both the state government and the federal government to train the unemployed graduates or at the current situation, the retrenched workers, to upskill them and then put them into industries, hiring industries at the moment. So what we do is we have the industry demand, we understand what the demand, the skills are needed, and then we also have the industry partners, hiring partners, and address the need of the unemployed. So we actually like a matchmaking agency as well in wisdom. All right. So we match what the industry need, and we find students or candidates, we upskill them, and then we place them into that company. All right. So with the key purpose of, these three key purpose of whether to help a company to kickstart their 4.0 journey, all right, or whether to help the company to achieve a competitive advantage, or whether to help the company to have a sustainable pool of talent for them to hire. All right. So this is also the other model that SHRDC are currently offering. Because of pandemic, like Mr. Ronnie mentioned, pandemic actually pushed us hard, and sense of urgency. We know that if we don't do anything, we do not know how long the lockdown is going to be prolonged. We can't sit down and wait for the announcement for us to be able to run or to open our center. So because of pandemic, because of the availability of technology, the team created, we call it our SHRDC's blended learning system. All right, if you look at the left-hand side, we uses virtual training platforms depending on clients. We use MS Team, we also use Zoom, Google Meet, or Jitsi, depending on which one the clients prefer. And we also use collaborative training platform. So if we are only doing a soft skills program or programs that do not require practical activities, we will be focusing on using collaborative whiteboard and also other collaborative learning technology. All right. With the reason of a lot of companies or participants are still reluctant. In last year, we're talking about last year, they are reluctant to attend online classes because in their mind, online classes is boring. I can't learn. I can only 30 minutes and then I'll fall asleep or I'll do something else. I won't pay my employees to attend a training where they can't focus and they don't learn in the virtual environment. But in SHRDC, as early as April last year, we have already, our team started to pick up these virtual facilitation techniques that are different from a normal online training. We believe in engaging participants in the class. We believe that learning activities are still possible when you do it on the virtual platform, right? So our trainers are trained to run virtual facilitation effectively. So if let's say we are going to do something technical program, and again, a lot of us will ask, wow, technical program, how can I do my practical session online? It is not possible. So it also took us a while to set up these remote online training facilities. In 2018, we actually have a collaboration with a Swiss partner to set up a remote access lab. So we have 18 remote access workspaces. We call it the workspace from Switzerland. But because it is dependent on an external party, a lot of changes, we still have to go back to our service provider to change. And because of that, we do not have a free hand to do or to modify or to customize our program. So what we do is during the pandemic itself, using the same concept, our own team, actually our own technical team, came up with our own remote online training facilities. So right now, today, we have 42 our own ROT lab. All right. This is to address the need of practical training to be done virtually. All right. So this is, and with this, we have the whole package of offering training programs on the virtual platform. And we also use open learning, the open learning platform since last year. I personally, when we sign up our open learning platform, I personally sit through 2 of their programs and understand how it works. And from there, then we put our programs into open learning. And right now we are using open learning platform as our main platform for training in SHRDC. Right? So our content will be in there, our assessment will be all in open learning. But when we come to activities, we will go to our collaborative training platform, or we will go to the remote online training facilities. So this is how SHRDC has transformed from last year to address this urgent need. Okay, that's all from me. Sorry.
Thank you so much, Ms. Sukling. It's really, it kind of gives a different environment in terms of how you kind of developed over the years. And I think what's really important from that is you can't rely on one kind of training for the rest of everything. It's more of like, how do you adapt to the current environments and kind of offer new and innovative ways of training. And also, it's very interesting on how you kind of reimagined technical training in terms of virtual labs and getting people hands-on experience, even though it's in an online space. We'll definitely come back to that in terms of how we can approach that and how other trainers can learn from that in terms of reimagining technical training. But thank you so much for that. Just to keep the things moving as well, I'd like to introduce Mr. Siva from Taloncorp. Please feel free to take over and share a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, is my video and my voice clear?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. First and foremost, thank you, Mr. Sarvin from Open Learning for inviting us, Taloncorp, and the panel members, Mr. Ronnie, Ms. Tay, and Mr. Kamal. Nice to meet all of you. Let me quickly go through an introduction to Taloncorp, and if we move on to the next slide. So Taloncorp is the agency under the Ministry of Human Resource, tasked to attract, nurture, and retain talent to support what we call the Malaysian growth. We build industry linkages, advocate policies, introduce best practices, implement interventions, programs to close gaps, and most importantly, entering into partnership and collaboration with stakeholders. So our stakeholders could be within the agencies as well as external parties. Partnerships are core to our Taloncorp strategies, and we work with the government industries, academias, fulfillment providers to ensure Malaysia has a sufficient supply of what we call appropriate skilled talent to meet the demands of the industries and employees. Let me just quickly go through the three trusts that we have on the right hand side. Our three trust focus area is to actually look at optimizing Malaysian talent. A substantial part of Taloncorp's effort is always channeled into optimizing Malaysian talent in the evolving industry requirements. Prepare most of the focus areas. We try to make sure we prepare Malaysian students and graduates to meet the demands generated by the economy. We also look at facilitating what we call placement of global government scholars in the labor market and optimize returns. We also do facilitation of women back into the workforce via policy advocacy, ensuring workplace that is diverse and inclusive. It's a very strong push for this right now in the women's space, especially with more and more university graduates leaning towards more women graduates. I think the last data we had is about 70% are graduating women. Encouraging upskilling of Malaysian talents, and this one obviously we collaborate, and this is very specific to non-HRDF contributing employees. We also have some facilitation, but mostly we work together with HRD Corp as well as Perkeso on this matter. The Trust 2 is to attract and facilitate global talents. These be Malaysians who are abroad as well as foreign skilled professionals that coming through the organizations that are hiring expatriate in the country. We engage and we connect and we facilitate the employment paths and the facilitation towards that. It's important to note that why we do it is because we want to understand the incoming trend. What kind of hirings are happening and why are they choosing expatriates specifically for a job market or job industry? It could be because of wage issues, it could be because of skills issue and so on. So these data actually play a very critical input for us to create the necessary intervention and policy decision that will help facilitate more optimization of Malaysian talent. The third portion is about building network of top talent. We try to foster a lot of collaboration, propagate what we call opportunities that exist in Malaysia, establish channels for Malaysians to contribute from abroad, potentially initiate what we call a conversation that leads to new ideas of cross-border business or professional opportunities. And it is important because we don't see the concept of brain drain anymore. We see more brain circulation happening as more talents are going abroad, as well as more talents also are coming into Malaysia. Strengthen linkages between the industry and academia is also what we want to do, and we focus that very clearly with what we call bridging gaps, industry demand for talent and academia supply graduate, and that covers in the Mynex as the platform. Now, let me go to the next slide. If this is the MOHR ecosystem, and just give you a context, just to let you know that job market today, the supply of graduate produced by the local industry is higher learnings has been increasing year on year. However, the youth unemployment is also steadily increasing parallel to the total unemployment. The COVID-19 pandemic is also resulting in what we call an increase in the number of job losses, subsequently rise in the country's unemployment by 200,000 to record 718,000 in 2020. This also affects what we call labor market, especially when fresh graduates are also entering into the same job market space, and job among the graduates are getting more challenging with the presence of more unemployed persons who lost their job during the pandemic. Graduates' unemployment rate spike is right now at 4.4%, with the number of unemployed graduates recording about 202,000 in 2020. Despite this, the industries have indicated their continuous need for talent. As we engage with the industry, Taloncorp's primary strength is actually in the industry engagement. We do a lot of industry collaboration and industry engagement, and we find that according to the job market insights under ILMIA, that there are about 124,000 job openings available, with about 21,000 companies that are hiring in Q3 of 2020. Now, the listed industry or top hiring industries are related to manufacturing, wholesale, professional, scientific and technical activities, including financial and insurance or other services. Based on the Ministry of Finance, the following are the sectors that are rebounding in 2021. Construction sector seems to move up, mining, services, manufacturing, and agriculture. Meanwhile, the other experts agree that the digital platform, e-commerce and information technology will also play an important pivotal point, proven significant to facilitate business policy, also prioritize social distancing and minimum human interaction. And we see this growing trend in the training space as well. More virtual trainings are happening, more virtual platforms are emerging out of this pandemic. And the uptake of technology by organization is also moving very, very rapidly high, and it's very apparent right now. One case in point is our own webinar that we are going through right now. The other aspect is the shortage of talent doesn't exist, but not exclusively in numbers, does exist, but not exclusively in numbers, as it interrelates with the skill graduates bring to the table. So Taloncorp produces something called the Annual Critical Occupation List, has identified recurring occupational shortages in its first publication in 2015, and a common trend of 22 occupations which appears every year. So from Taloncorp space, when we look at where we are within the MOHR ecosystem, we focus more on the starting school. So obviously our intervention are at the students entering into SKM4, diploma holders, university students and so forth, up to graduation. And post-graduation, it's where My Future Jobs and HRD Corp take over. And obviously from the rest of the other aspects, professional space, we come in with all our programs that I shared earlier about. Now, if we were to cover the next slide, if we move on to next slide. So what is more important is how do we then understand the market space? What kind of demands are coming, and what kind of training needs are needed for these demands that's coming, and what kind of supply do we have being churned out from the universities as companies come in to invest into Malaysia. So Mynex is a platform that we have architected and stems out from the need that we have identified within the industry, as well as our engagement, as we used to run a program, and we are still running a program called Structured Internship Program, which allows organizations to hire interns and place them in their organization and do what we call an internship, structured internship program, up to 6 months, 10 weeks and above, and you can actually claim double tax incentive. double tax incentive in the form of a training allowance that's provided for these particular students, as well as the training materials given for these particular students up to 5,000 ringgit. And organization actually uses this. We have gone through about more than 80,000 individuals throughout this facilitation of SIP, and now we are enabling it through a platform. And what we want to also do is to ensure look at using this as a platform to identify gaps, identify where the demands are coming, and what kind of gaps that needs to be identified by fulfillment through the universities as well as training providers. Next slide. So Mynex comes with several suite of products, and today we've gone live with the platform. If you were to type mynex.my, you can actually go into the platform today. So Mynex allows you to allow a particular individual to profile themselves. And by profiling, I'm saying that you can actually go in and understand what is your values are, what's your interests are, what's your preference are. So it has a combination of something called a RISAC model, and as well as an MBTI profiling tool, which actually tells you your personality traits. And on top of that, while you're studying, you can actually use this particular engine to engage with companies for internship opportunities and also structured internship program. So for companies, we actually allow companies to post internship opportunities. So it's not a job portal per se, it's specifically for internship while in studying period. And it allows a particular student to, you can actually promote your organization throughout the country for students from throughout the country as well. So what will happen is a company in Johor might be looking for a student specifically with some sort of internship exposure that they want to give, and that particular intern might be available in a university from up north, for example. So this platform allows that collaboration to happen. The other aspect is while they're doing the internship, we use a tool to assess the outcome of that particular internship, and the assessment talks about what skills were there, what skills were not fulfilled, and what skills were identified as gaps. Now with that data point, we can then actually facilitate or connect with training opportunities. In this point, we are working closely with other training providers. If there are anyone interested, we are more than happy to have a conversation to see how you can actually fulfill those training requirements. Not to forget, because these companies are also HRD contributors, they might be HRD contributors. They also might be HR, you might be a HRD training provider, we can actually facilitate that as well. Now, the idea is based on those gaps identified, we can then do what we call different form of learnings to fulfill those gaps, whether it be a digital learning, it could be a bite-sized learning, or it could be a micro-credentialing learning, or it could be a professional certification learning. And that's where Mynex process works at. Now, Mynex University, we collaborate with a lot of universities in Malaysia. We have 20 IPTAs and more than 100 over or 200 over private universities in Malaysia. Already quite a significant number, more than 10 of the universities are making Mynex as a compulsory requirement for students entering into the university. So for today, just to share with you, we have about more than 140,000 record in the database of students coming in to do their profiling, and now companies can start posting and selecting this particular student. What's important is university get an early exposure of where the gaps are. And because companies can get to do assessment on the student and student get to assess the company, those data points are then captured and referenced, and we can then identify the gaps. And with that gaps, we can partner with training solution providers, and we can actually allow the suite of training facilitation to happen and that fulfillment to take place. We are not a training provider. Taloncorp will not go into that space. Rest assured, but we want to partner with all training providers and training facilitators who can actually fulfill those gaps and what kind of gaps that can be identified. From a university perspective, it's important these data points, because then the university can for the first time understand where the demands are coming for their particular students, where the internships are being fulfilled, and With that kind of information, university then can decide on courses that are very relevant to increase the student capacity, knowing the demand trend that's coming in, versus courses that are non-relevant for the industry. So that's how the whole environment works. For the workforce, of course, we see now as we talk to different organizations, companies are asking whether they can use the same platform to apply for their own organization, for understanding their own organization, personality traits of the individuals, their profiling tool, and what kind of gaps can we identify. So we will be coming out with this particular facilitation very soon for companies that really require those kind of services. Next. So that's briefly my intro. So I shall stop here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Siva. I think what really stood out for me straight away was that overview slide that you gave in terms of how the ecosystem works. I think trainers, education providers, I think that also kind of helps you set the tone of which segment do you want to play at as well in terms of how you customize your training. The second thing that also from that was data, right? In terms of the data that Taloncorp is starting to provide, how can we access that data to kind of make your training better, make your training more relevant? And I think that's really powerful in terms of how all trainers and education providers can start adapting actual data coming to kind of push that agenda. So that's really exciting. And I think this is probably a line of questions that will come that way as well. Thank you so much, Mr. Siva. I will come back to you on that one. And next, we have Mr. Kamal, who's the head of Axiata Fast Forward. Mr. Kamal, please feel free to take it away.
Thank you, Sarvin. Very good morning, everyone. Honored to be with the panelists of today. I know Mr. Siva from my stint in Taloncorp as well. It's nice to see you again, Siva. Again, like I said, honored to be part of a very well-organized panel as well. And thank you all, about 200 people who are online and in the webinar this morning. I'm gonna share my screen and gonna try and make this. One second. Okay, is my can you see my screen?
Yes, I can.
All right. Okay, so I represent today Axiata. I hope I won't have to take too much time introducing who we are, Axiata. With 8 million subscribers in Malaysia alone through our operating company, Celcom Axiata. I hope we are well known enough, at least in Malaysia. So Axiata Fast Forward is the group learning platform that we established for the Axiata group of companies. I'll talk about that a little bit more, but again, a bit about Axiata. We operate as hopefully most of you would know, Celcom Axiata in Malaysia, as well as 5 other operating companies which run telecommunications services. We are in Indonesia through Excel Axiata. We are in Cambodia through Smart Cambodia. We are in Sri Lanka through Dialog, and in Bangladesh through Robi, as well as in Nepal through Ncell. We also operate one of the biggest infrastructure or tower companies in this region through our company called E.co, and we also run 4 digital services or digital businesses through our digital company subsidiaries ADA, Boost, Aspirasi, and ADL. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about who we are in the Fast Forward. And Axiata, we've got a vision of becoming the next generation digital champion by 2024. So we're moving really rapidly. We started the digital transformation of Axiata in early 2017. So we are in the 4th year of our transformation to digital. And here's our aspiration, very clearly stated. We want to transform from a mobile-centric telco to converged digital operators. We want to pivot from portfolio company to 2 lines of digital businesses, and also we want to advance, our reach in terms of being regional to global champions, right? And aligned to that is what we call our people strategies, right? And we've got what we call our A, B, C, D, and E, people strategic priorities. So, and we at Axiata Fast Forward contribute mainly to the third area, which is cultivate learning organization, right? And this is the details of our ABCDE of our people strategy, aligned basically, again, like I said, to Axiata's professed strategy of becoming digital champions by 2024. And key to cultivating a learning organization is what I lead, which is what we call Axiata Fast Forward. Axiata Fast Forward, we're building 7 academies within the learning platform, and each of this academy, serves different business functions across the group. We have in total across all our companies almost 12,000 employees across the region in the Axiata globe. And as you can see from this chart, we are building all these academies to serve the different business functions. So there's the Leadership Management Academy, mainly will be serving people in leadership and management positions. And then there is the Customer Experience Academy for our frontliners. And then there will be the Technology Academy, serving the technology people playing technology roles in ICT, network, and also looking at future technology capabilities. One of the more advanced academies that we have built is the Sales and Marketing Academy. This serves our product people, our go-to-market strategy people, as well as retail and enterprise sales. Right? Then there's a very crucial to us academy that we have launched and we have keep improving, which is our Ways of Working Academy. And as it says there, this is to help us drive modern ways of working, also helps us to build culture in terms of different ways of working, as well as digital awakening across the organization. Then another business function that we're serving is the finance and accounts. This is to drive accounting and business skills across the group. And then another very important academy as well that we have launched is the Digital Academy, which is meant to drive development and immersion of data literacy, digital literacy across the group. Yeah. The next chart shows you the progress that we've made in the building of the 7 academies. The ones which are with the tick signs are the ones that have been launched or advanced work has been done on them. The ones that are with the hourglass are the ones that are still work in progress. But the drive is to launch all 7 academies by the end of the year. Just to give you an example of how we put together the curriculum within our academies. In each of the academy, we develop what we call RBCs, a role-based curriculum. This is an example of the Enterprise Academy that we have launched, and it has, in this way, 4 tiers of a role-based curriculum. What we call EA 1.0, which is meant for knowledge building, and this is mainly online curated content. So we subscribe to online libraries and MOOCs as well. And the first foundation curriculum, as we call it, a basic curriculum, is meant to give knowledge building for people who are new in their roles, or people who we've brought in into the organization, into the roles, right? And as it says there, it's meant to strengthen fundamentals in the identified capability development areas for those roles that people are in. If you are, for example, an account manager in enterprise sales, and you're new in the job, you then go through what we call a CDI, or capability development inventory, which is an assessment of the critical skills that are needed for the job. And based on the results of the assessment, we then take you on a personalized learning journey through the platform. The second part of the curriculum as we build up is EA 2.0, which is meant for skills building and behavior shaping. And this is mainly instructor-led masterclass series, right? And this then provides depth into the skills areas in more collaborative environment. We started this journey actually to build Axiata Fast Forward in 2019. It was a pilot project that we started in our Malaysian OpCo, Malaysian Telco, which is Celcom, and subsequently in 2020, we then made it available to all the other OpCos as well. So when it started in 2019, the challenge really was advocacy work, right? Because this was in response to two things. One is the boom of the technology, right? From those of you who have been in the industry for a while would know that the LMSs have been in existence for quite a while. But I think it's only in the last 5 to 7 years where the advancement of the technology really has taken over to what now we call most LMSs have grown up to what we now call LXPs, or learning experience platforms. And so in response to that, as well as I think the inevitable growth of how people learn and how the new generation learn, right? In bite-sized information is available everywhere, anytime, and all that. The response was then look at a platform that will allow this to happen, because it's inevitable. And so we did in 2019, experimented with that in Celcom, which was a successful pilot. And then we then took this across, as I said, to the rest of the OpCos in 2020. So the model of role-based curriculum, as I'm showing here, is the same for each of the academies that we're building. So we're building up from foundation, which we mainly then give people curated online content, to building it up to more collaborative instructor-led masterclasses, like I said just now. But like I said, 2020 was a year when we then experienced the fact that a lot of these masterclasses are now delivered virtually. All right, and then the building up of the curriculum goes into what we call EA 3.0. In this case, for enterprise, then it's working with our product and product partners rather, to optimize the partnerships and collaborations that we have. For example, the platform also now allows our internal employees to access direct Google University, for example, as well as the Microsoft Learning Platform. So this gives them an option to also look at what are the other courses out there that they can improve their skills in, right? And then EA 4.0, as we're building it, would be then to focus on understanding markets and industries, to provide people in enterprise breadth in market and industry trends and issues. And this, we are looking at a series of webinars led by subject matter experts, as well as the community that we're building, right? So this, as I said, runs across all the academies that we're building. So this gives you a very illustrative view of the end-to-end of the learning journey of an account manager, for example, right? And how it takes them through their career development. Yeah. Another example that I want to show is the way that we've built our ways of working, a WOW Academy, and we've bucketed the curated content into 5 buckets, if you will. So there's curated content that will improve the way that you manage and lead the digital workforce, which is, a lot of our managers struggled, for example, earlier in 2020, as we went into lockdown and all that, how do you manage meetings in teams and all that, right? So the content of this, when we first curated that and then sent that out, when we began this whole episode in April, May, really shot up in terms of adoption and people taking these courses online. And then we also curated another bucket called Mastering Future Technologies, which is crucial to all of us in our OpCos as well. And number 3 was the bucket on mastering future work skills, right? And then mastering future businesses and the way that new businesses are influenced also by future technologies, right? So 2 and 4 are very closely related. So 4 focuses on the technology, and 2 focuses on the technology, and 4 focuses on how these technologies will be or are already impacting the way that we do business. And then number 5 is our bucket of courses that instill values. And we create a culture across the group which emphasizes on our value of UIEP, which stands for integrity and performance, right? And this also develops what we call our MAD workforce, which is modern, agile, and digital. So I hope this has given you an example of what I've been doing with my team of 6 people over the past 3 years, bringing this to about 12,000 of our employees across the region. Hope that gave you a little bit of view of what we do at Axiata, and happy to share some more of their questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kamal. I think one thing that kind of struck out to me is you're going through rapid change, right? And that means training requirements are changing as well. And if you were a trainer to Axiata, that doesn't necessarily mean that you will be a trainer to Axiata moving forward if you can't adapt to the requirements that you're pushing through. And I think you sharing the kind of framework that you're going through kind of puts perspective for education providers. Are you actually hitting those pillars, right? And those milestones in terms of how you're thinking about your employees, just a simple thing as an account manager, all the way down to the complexity of an account manager. And are you covering each of that? So I think that's really interesting in terms of the education provider. How are you pitching and how are you proposing, right? I think that will also be another line of questions as I bring it up eventually. Thank you so much, everyone, for kind of giving the introduction to how things work within your organizations. I know this took some time, but it's also very important to kind of give context to all our participants and guests in terms of, as an education provider, as a training company, or as a university, or as an individual trying to offer training or education, how do I think about moving forward? So I'm just going to merge some questions as we go. So my first question is to Mr. Ronnie. And to the rest after this, there's a current environment, which is we can't go to office or we can't go to physical locations. And that's changing, and that's, and people saw it as a temporary measure, and now it's somewhat long-term. The first question is there a breakdown between SME and MNC in terms of how they're pushing their employees to take up this kind of training? People are moving online. Do you see MNCs and SMEs separately in terms of the adoption of online training or training in this new environment? And what is your advice to trainers in terms of how do you approach this? And is it different? Is it changing now that markets are opening up again? Where do you see this moving to?
Thank you, Sarvin. Actually, that is a very brilliant question and relevant to where we are currently. The challenge to answer that question is there is no one approach that actually suits everybody, be it MNC or SMEs. Also from the employer's perspective as well as the employee's perspective. So I guess I would like to address the question in a stages basis. If there is any way that we can address the current challenges in the most effective way is to always try to adopt agile approach. Yeah, that is my humble suggestion. When I said agile here, I'm looking at from the angle of where you are currently. Where are these specific organizations currently? If they are MNC, for example, where they already have embedded system that monitor every aspect of learning, yeah, right from the TNA's preparation up to the assessment of the effectiveness. So for this kind of organization, for them to actually continuously or to ensure continuity of what they're doing, most probably they need to tweak a little bit from what they used to do towards changing to become more digitalized and what's not. Yeah, I'm just doing a wild assumption here. But having said that, it's not as easy as saying. Yeah, I have to address that. But what I'm trying to say, for some companies do have that readiness. Yeah. On the other end of the spectrum, there are companies who actually firefighting day by day. And for this group of companies, the main focus currently is survivalness. Maybe training will be at the end of their priorities, maybe, yeah. But for this group of companies, my humble request is, while you are fighting for survivalness, business, and what's not, just don't overlook entirely on the importance of equipping your manpower with the future requirement of training. Because I in no doubt that the pandemic may not have a deadline. Yeah, how I wish it have a deadline. After this year, stop. You know, but unfortunately, it might not. Yeah. So most organizations, be it international or even local, they are shifting toward leveraging on technologies. And many of these SMEs are actually suppliers within that ecosystem. So if you abandon entirely the needs to equip your manpower now with the training that will provide them with the skills that you know your clientele going to adopt digitally or using technology, eventually you will be left out, not only in terms of the skill, but also businesses, right? So for this group of companies, I would humbly request them, while they are focusing on survivalness and what's not, but always bear in mind on the needs of training. So coming back from the supplier's perspective, this is where I really need the experts group, the training providers group, to not look at this pandemic as the stopping block for their creativity, because your clients are struggling currently. Your clients being those organizations that always wanted to train their workers, but it is put on stop because of the pandemic. But doesn't mean that they are stopping entirely. They are just waiting for the right time to strike back for training, because the only way to progress is by having competent workforce. Yeah. And as far as businesses' survivalness is concerned, they want to progress. So from the contents provider perspective, from the training provider's perspective, this is where you need to move very much ahead from where your clients currently, because the moment they are back to normal, they will be running. They will be running. And if you are not ready now with all the digital contents or whatsoever, the face-to-face content that you used to do before, and if you do not convert them now to become a digital enabled platform or digital enabled content, when your client is ready and they are running, you will be left behind. Yeah. So all of us, not only the employers, the training providers, in fact, HRD Corp ourselves, we have been managing fund for all these years, right? But apparently now we also need to look into the learning ecosystem entirely, because in order for this fund to be utilized, training needs to happen. But training is not happening because we have all this limitation of face-to-face unenabled training and what's not. So we need to look into a platform that maybe perhaps the digital platform that will be enabled to facilitate all the training providers or the trainers that may need or may want to pack their digital content into a learning platform without having to invest high amount of capital at their end. So we look at a scalable platform that HRD Corp need to provide and to manage in order to ensure that learning ecosystem in Malaysia will continue. Yeah. So Sarvin, I am so sorry, I can't give you any one specific formula of how everybody have to address this, but humbly request, please stay with us, stay with HRD Corp. We are doing something, and we need all of you to move together with us. We need you to be ready with your digital content. When the platform is ready, you are ready with your content, you can anytime pack into it. And our employers, which later on going to be connected through the platform, will have a smooth transactions of learning because everything will be there. The payment gateway will be there. The matching of programs listing and training employers requirement will be there. So this will be done entirely using technology. Yeah. So bear with us. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ronnie. I think what there's an angle there as well, which is there's no one size that fits all in terms of that question. There's so many SMEs, there's so many MNCs, everyone's on their journey. I think it's hard to just classify them as they're not going to bother with online learning or going to bother with wait for the face-to-face training to come back. So I think it's really important as a trainer and education provider to kind of find the client that's interested, right? And these are the clients that are most likely going to survive as well, as they are the ones adapting to the new way of pushing things. And you know, HRD is doing a lot of things there, and platforms like Open Learning will be integrating as well to kind of make sure that it's not so heavy in terms of investment, of how you kind of look at it. But Ms. Sukling, in terms as a training provider yourself, what are your clients telling you? Like, are they saying, hey, please give me something that's blended, give me something that's only online because I have no time, or give me something that can stretch on for long term? Or you know, how are they seeing it in terms of planning for today and also planning for tomorrow as a training provider?
If you look at last year, right? Last year when we tried to sell our programs, the blended learning programs to clients, be it SME or MNCs, we see a lot of objection in terms of the question on the effectiveness of the training. So whether my employees are able to learn or to absorb the learning well when they are at home, you know, with the kids running around, and where they still have to work if the bosses call and things like that. So there's a lot of questions on the effectiveness of training, right? That was last year. So MNCs, our clients, MNC clients said no training for 2020 because of, you know, we have to manage the pandemic, like Mr. Ronnie mentioned, you know, because if allowed to open, we want our staff to focus on getting the operations activities completed. And for SME as well, again, training is the last in the priority list, right? It's the last in the priorities. Why? Because they are now in the surviving stage. So, but then again, a lot of SME, when we explain to them that training, you must not stop training. If there's a need in training, we are proposing now not a 5 days training, we are proposing a shorter duration training to address their current need first. A longer duration training may not work at this point of time, right? One is because of the cost, second is because of time. And whether the employees has the infrastructure to support them at home to attend a virtual training or not, right? Whether they have the bandwidth, whether they have a decent or a proper desktop for them to, or laptop for them to attend classes or virtual facilitation session. So these are a few others reason why people are not confident in attending classes. But however, this year we see a lot, we see some shift of demand in terms of training. One, because they know that they have to utilize a levy already. There's a limit, there's a time. Levy need to be utilized. Second, they foresee that, you know, the business is going to open up, they have to catch up. They need to upskill their people, right? So this year we see customer coming back to us and say, show us how you are going to run this program. So what we do is we do preview of programs, right? We get their head of department or maybe potential attendees to go through a half an hour or 1 hour training with us and tell them this is how we are going to run this program. We are going to use the open learning platform. We are going to use our ROT lab. This is the activities that you are going to do. This is how we are going to facilitate this session. So once they are confident that, oh, yeah, actually not so bad, let's try. So once they are confident, then we see that, you know, more and more participants are now coming into this, and therefore training business, I think for this year, we are trying to catch up as well. And I think it is going to start, going to be going big very soon. As long as more and more companies see the importance of upskilling, I think it's coming soon. Yeah.
So I guess one way of looking at it is the approach of how you present it has to change dramatically as well, right?
Right.
Because,
yeah.
They're so used to just saying, "Oh yeah, there's a training, go for it." Now you gotta give them the imagination of what this new type of training is going to look like, why it's still relevant, why it's still going to be effective in that sense, right? And painting that picture for them is really important, because it's very easy to make an assumption, oh, it's just a video, or it's just an assumption that it's just bite-sized, right?
Maybe in fact run a trial class for them, because it is difficult for them to just look at or listen to what we trying to explain how it works, but we just tell them in, okay, you come in just for 1 hour, we will show you that maybe the one section of how the training is going to be done. Then they have the feel and the experience, and when they are confident, they will buy the program. Yeah.
Well, so to the participants, that's another thing, right? Especially if you're dealing with an SME client or a client, actually shouldn't generalize that way. Any client who is not so focused on digital types of training or new types of training, it's really important to kind of show them what it could be like and what the potential could be, because they're also starting from a different environment as well. And Mr. Sukling, you brought up effectiveness, which I want to bring up to Mr. Siva. In terms of one of the segments within Mynex, where you're working with training programs and certifications to help all these students and learners get better. If I'm a training provider, how do I sign up to be as part of the list of the training programs? Second is, what are you looking for in terms of effectiveness? Just like what Ms. Sukling said just now, a lot of SMEs are saying, hey, is this effective or not, right? So from a Mynex perspective, if I'm a training provider and I'm going to come to you, what are you going to ask me in terms of how do you prove effectiveness?
Yeah, okay. Actually, it's loaded questions, but let me try to
take it however you like. But I just guess it's like, how do you provide?
Well, let me take 2 steps back and just give you the context first. I think everyone talks about effectiveness of training and whether the value or not. And the company's perspective, they want value for money, whatever they invest on a particular individual, right? And when they do that kind of training facilitation for a particular individual, they want certain outcome that can be applied to their business needs straight away. And that's the thinking. And because of that kind of thinking, today you can't send a particular individual away for 5 days, 6 days, or 3 days, for a course and all that. This is not going to happen. I mean, you can see the realities. So bite-sized learning is becoming more popular. I can see this more and more effectiveness as they learn, they assess, learn and assess, and so forth. The coming back to the question about the concept about where training providers can play a role in the Mynex platform and how it can happen. There are 2 things that we're trying to address. First is, we need to now identify the right skills required by the industry when they come up to ask for certain skill sets, right? The skills that they require also are not standardized. So for example, some might say, I want a software engineer, but what level, we don't know. So I want a level problem solving skills, but the person's aptitude might be a level 1, he wants to move into level 3. So all these skills needs to be met. And our objective is to get companies to start thinking in this way. Why? Because it will help training providers specifically understand what kind of skills is really required and what kind of fulfillments can I give you. Right now, it might be generic. Oh, I want problem solving. I think it's a very important tools to have. But what kind of problem solving are you looking at? What kind of skills tools that you need for your organization? So that what we are doing is we are trying to identify those first. That's number 1. Number 2, as we identify those, and as a student goes through an internship cycle, let's say he's studying in design thinking or he's in the engineering field. Of course, problem solving is one of an element that he has, but what level does he has will not be determined until he goes to the work experience, because he's still studying phase. But what's more important is we can actually map that particular requirements in the university space, try to map that with the skills that is the organization requiring for. So during the internship process, we will do that mapping skills. That's the first step. Second step is they go through the internship process. During the internship process, they might come out with an assessment. So what we want to do is to ensure an assessment happens on the skills that they went for. And because they have gone through this particular thing, company gets to rate those particular individual and tell us honestly, this guy, English as a business communication is level 0. And therefore, we need to then look at the student assessing himself and saying, I'm at level 1. So there will be this tipping point where we will have an average out of this. Because we know this average, then we say, oh, this intervention requires English as a communication skills training. And he needs to go basic English 101, for example. Where do I go and source for this kind of courses? Is it available online, free, if it's there under the open learning platform or any other platform? That's one. Or is it something that you can actually get off from digital platforms like YouTube or channels or whatever or not? That's another option. Or is it something we need to target and specifically provide a specific skills training that is required for that particular student or the particular cohorts or for the particular organization, this expectation. And to do that with these data points, we are hoping we can actually give a suite of training solutioning that is available in the market, whether it's a HRD organization that contributes to HRD, because HRD, for example, they collect levy and there's people pay for those levy. And when they are paying for the levy, that organization can use that particular fund, hopefully in the pipeline that we are working with Ronnie and his team, is to have that e-latte courses and look at other programs that will come in to intervene or intervene for that particular training facilitation. So that's the thinking right now. So to do that, we need to capture these data points. And what we are doing right now, we have this 140,000 records, which tells us very glaring. One thing I can tell you straight away, English as a business communication is number 1. It's number 1. So how do we actually ensure that particular intervention happens? Of course, universities are teaching some of this, but is there any alternate courses that he can take or to improve himself and so forth and so on, and where we can actually put this in as well? That's how it works.
And so I guess there's 2 components to that, right? There's the identification of the skill set and the skill required down to the minute detail as possible, as low, as concise as possible. And I think the other component to that is, what is the evidence or artifact of learning that you can prove to the employer that you can do what you said you do, right? For example, English 101, there's a simple video of myself explaining and talking will tell me what level I'm at right away. So I guess from a training provider's perspective as well, when you conduct your training, you got to be thinking about, how can I prove that person X has actually achieved said assessment, said skill set, and what is that artifact of learning that I can provide to the employer?
Yeah, so just to add on, Sarvin, just to give you a context, right now we do the assessment onto the platform for the students. So English as an assessment is done. Digital literacy, we do it in ICT, but digital literacy is becoming more and more important. So we are also doing an assessment for that. Obviously, then the 21st century skills, we're talking about critical thinking, problem solving, all these assessments are also being rolled out. So students will do an assessment based on certain questions and answers there. And there are some possible formulas that they need to also go in and look at a problem statement and see how they can best address it. Those results then gets put in as well.
Yeah. So I think just trying to help the panelists, that's something to consider for your own environment as well, right? Mynex is doing this already and it's starting to work. As a trainer, how do you now start thinking about this as well in your own environment, in terms of assessing, analyzing, and being able to identify, right? Working with the likes of Taloncorp, HRD, in terms of getting the data, in terms of pushing this agenda as well. That's really important as we move towards that. Mr. Kamal, as the employer yourself, how would you look at this, right? So if I'm a training company coming to you, how do you want them to approach you moving forward in terms of the proposals, in terms of like, how does that work right now? How does one identify the skill sets Axiata is looking for, and how do I propose a customized version for you that's able to hit all the requirements that you need?
Thanks, Sarvin, for the question. I think it's a straightforward answer. I mean, we want training providers who work with us to work within the framework that we are creating, which is basically, hybrid, delivery. We send out, for example, an RFI for our Learning and Management Academy when we piloted this in Celcom in 2019. And the requirement was, when you put in your proposal, we want to now challenge you and say, if you are proposing a 3-day face-to-face program, we now want you to change this to either a 1-day program face-to-face and the rest of it delivered online, or a hybrid somehow, but we will not entertain a 3-day face-to-face program. Like Mr. Siva said earlier, there's just no time for people to spend 3 days out of the business now, right? So that's how we are building the partnerships, if you will, with people who want to work with us in terms of building our academies. Please also be on the lookout for people who are out there in the panel or in the audience. We will, from time to time, be sending out RFIs and RFPs to work with us on the academies. The next ones, as you saw from my slides just now, would be the Technology Academy, the Customer Experience Academy, and there's also room for improvement, especially in our ways of working academy. So a good example of that is, and this is a classic use case, if I can share that with you. We had a vendor or a training provider who have been providing face-to-face program. It's a 5-day program called Essentials of Telecommunications, right? And this is targeted mainly for people who we bring into the organization that are not from the telecoms industry. So the 5-day program is really, to provide you a very foundation of being in the telco business. So that you don't look bewildered when you go into meetings and people start spewing up acronyms such as CDMA and all that, right? And what's an EMA and all that. So the Essentials of Telecoms really provides that. And like I said, it used to be a 5-day program, a 9 to 5, because there's so much content. When we started this initiative, we challenged, and this has been provided by the same training provider for the last, I can't remember, 5, 7, whatever years. So when we started this initiative, we challenged them and said, we can't afford the 5-day courses anymore, not from a cost perspective, but just from a time perspective, right? I mean, just not from RM cost, but and not from a per person cost, but also because of opportunity cost and all that, right? So right now, we just launched this again in, if I remember correctly, in April of this year, the e-version of this. So now it's available, and we can now reach all 12,000 of our employees by putting it on the WOW Academy. But we've also designed it so that there is every quarter a half-day collaborative course where people can get online. The trainer who's been training this face-to-face for the past 5-7 years for 5 days now goes online for half a day and answers questions based on what people have been reading and understanding online over the past quarter. So that's, I think, a good example of how we're challenging really the industry in terms of how do you deliver programs to corporates like us. 2 things, right? So it's both space, because we operate in 6 regions or in 6 countries, as well as time, because we can't, like I said, afford a 5-day program or even a 2-day program anymore. I hope that answered the question.
It does. It gives a whole lot of context too, actually. Just listening to all the panelists, if I'm a trainer, you can't imagine that it will just go back to normal, where you're going to go back to running a 5-day program, a 3-day program. Like everyone said here, cost and just the new norm in terms of people what they're used to and just the time element that comes with it. Everyone needs to be rethinking how they offer their training and utilizing technologies that will enable them to do both wherever the customer requires. In terms of whether it's shorter, longer, blended, how does the experience work online versus how the experience offline. All these little things and these components are really important, and it's really important to kind of talk through platforms and even other trainers in terms of how to kind of work this angle out, because that's what the industry is moving to. Mr. Ronnie, if I'm a trainer and I'm trying to blend this out and I'm trying to think of the programs that I'm going after, does HRD provide guidance in terms of like what kind of trainings people are looking out for and what are people actually asking for, and what's incoming, right? And what do you see in the next couple of months in terms of, if I'm a trainer, how do I set myself up for that?
Sure. Thank you, Sarvin. Now, under the current initiative, we have what we call industrial skill framework. This industrial skill framework is actually an inputs that we acquired from all the participating industry currently, telling us out of all the skills requirement, out of all the qualifications that are available out there, which specific areas that they are looking at currently, meaning for the next 1 or 2 years. Of course, in due respect, some of this document, when we prepared, it was without it, we were still not in the pandemic time. So some of these documents may need to be updated and changed as we are speaking. So among the industrial skill framework that's already available is the digital tech, where we are working together with MDEC, we're working together with PICOM and all the industries players in the in this technology field. And they keep on pumping in on the identified causes. And if I'm a training provider, this would be a good platform for me to actually look into what not only the current requirement, but as well as the future. Perhaps we can call it post-pandemic and what's not. And this document is already available in our website. It's free to be downloaded to all training providers. One of the main reasons why we have this document, because there was always this statement come out from the employers, for example, that courses offered by training providers under HRD Corp does not meet the industry requirement. Yeah, so this is where this is technically true during the era where we leave everything to the market forces. The employer select the training provider, and the training provider provide them the courses that they describe how they wanted it to be. So it's a supply and demand kind of environment, right? But as the employers goes matured and the training industry becoming more mature and matured, they expect more. So this more is unlimited. So in order to fulfill this to a certain extent, this is where we engage the related industry to tell us what they need and so forth. But just bear in mind, this list, the list of training requirement and what's not, these are non-exhaustive. It will still be updated from time to time. And we are still actually working with many more industries. We started this with those under the previous act, before the amended act, where we have 63 subsectors. Okay. Now we are going to have more than 88 subsectors. So it is still a work in progress. Yeah. So this is one of the best reference, I think, that the training providers can look at. We have hotel industries, we have water supply and wastage management industries. We have digital tech. The skill framework is available free for download for everybody.
Oh, I think that's going to be really helpful. I think sometimes guidance in terms of where to go is really important in terms of just navigating this. Like Ronnie, Mr. Ronnie, you just said, there's just so many elements, right? And there's so many different permutations, and the adoption of it, in terms of what used to be printed to what's actually happening now. That's really changing as well. So I think what HRD is doing in terms of the framework as well, it's definitely something worthwhile to check out for all training companies in terms of how you go about that. Just along the same lines, Mr. Siva, with all the analysis that you're doing, is there a way that people can leverage on that from Taloncorp in terms of understanding where these jobs are and where these companies that you mentioned earlier?
Definitely can. I mean, the whole idea is for us to eventually share all these data points and to make it available so that training providers understand what kind of demands that are coming in, first and foremost, from the companies that are doing internship. And you can actually almost forecast that as a talent pipeline trainings. So these are people that's going into an organization, they will eventually look for a job. The whole idea of this particular platform is to increase employability and to ensure they go into the market without the need for upskilling and reskilling after they graduate. Fingers crossed. Yeah. So we are trying to increase that number, and we look at the employability factor. Through our own model, when we have done this structured internship program and we've done a survey against the students that has actually completed as well as the companies, 23% of them get employed into the same organization out of the 100, for example. So that's a good number, but it's not a number that is anywhere near the global benchmark. So we want to make sure that moves up to 53%, and that's the hope. So this platform hopefully allows to do that. Now, in order for us to do that, we will then need to have training providers who can actually provide the necessary fulfillment of those gaps. The organization themselves might not be able to do it. As you have rightly pointed out, there will be a combination of learnings. And we want to ensure that this particular platform enables those kind of combination of learning to be accessed. That means we can say these are the availabilities and these are the providers that are providing that kind of facilitation. Go connect, and look at the opportunities there. I mean, some might offer it differently, some might blended learning, some might be assessment-based learning. I'm not sure. Those programs, learning providers, training providers will need to now look into both aspects, the physical side of it and the digital world. It's inevitable because we see more and more digital literacy students entering into the universities. I mean, they are born with their mobile phone and they move into the market space in that way. So they expect bite-sized learning and quick-sized learning as well. So they want to understand that. And I see the growing trend. The Ministry of Higher Education has already started something called a micro-credentialing learning. And it's something that we are exploring, and it's just give you context. It's about certification style qualification to the audience, and it's for industry in mind. And what they are doing is they want to make sure that qualification meets industry specific needs and relevant and recognized by the future employers. And what they are talking about is doing short and low cost online courses that provide learners with digital certification, which means it's a digital badge when they complete. So it's all going digital. And what does that mean? So tomorrow, an employer who is sourcing for a candidate, today they have different channels, but LinkedIn seems to be a popular place where they go in. And they can actually look at the digital badging, or this person has gone and completed this course. So they want to make sure there is a certain standard implied. And I think training providers need to see how you can actually link. In my view, is about how you can actually make sure yours to become a standard and apply or adopt some standards, because of those standards you can then get whatever you fulfill. You completed the course, you will get a standard certification, and because of that standard certification, it's recognized and it's benchmarked, so nobody then questions you and say, oh, this skills is not there. And then post assessment you can actually look at the whole cycle and see the effectiveness of it as well. So standardization, I think, is going to come, and I see this happening a lot, especially in the ICT industry. Today, everybody wants to become a Google someone or Amazon Web Service or whatever. The demand is there. So training providers need to understand a few things. So from Mynex, I think what we can provide, where the demands are coming, because we engage with the industry, we capture that as data points, and we can actually will publish. These are the Q1. These are the training requirements that we see in demand by the industries. Yeah.
I think you touched a lot of different points, and it's really helpful in terms of how the trainers can look at it. And if I'm a trainer, I think one important thing as well is the program that you offer and the technology that you utilize. How do you prove the assessment? How do you prove the badge? And what does that badge actually mean, right? And you're going digital. How do I prove that this badge means something? The technology that you use should be able to have badges and certifications, being able to share that across to multiple people. And more importantly, I feel is like the portfolio as well, right? The assessment feature that you've done, how do I prove that I've done that assessment as well? Mr. Kamal, as an employer yourself, one of the questions here is, as Mr. Siva pointed out, as digital learning is increasing, and kids are now learning on mobile phones, and actually not even kids, anyone, right? Is someone like Axiata looking at it as, I will value the digital courses as powerful as any other program that's coming my way? Sorry, the question would be, digital courses.
I was going to ask if you can, yeah, sorry.
Is digital courses given the same value or looked at seriously as a potential employee coming in applying for the job?
Oh yeah, I think again that's to me inevitable, right? And we do look at those as being recognized by industry, right? And bite size your nano degrees or whatever, and that's the direction that we're going as well. And I think what we want is, how do the bottom line still stays the same, right? Which is, how do you perform at work is bottom line. So it doesn't matter to us how you reskill or upskill, as long as when you get into the company and you're part of us, you perform as well as if you have if you have a PhD or a master's, which will take you 3 years, 7 years, whatever, right? But if you can perform the same task and your performance level is the same, it doesn't matter to us. In fact, we encourage that even, right? And I think by the way that we are curating some of our courses in the digital academy, for example, we're going with providers who can do certification as well as nano and micro degrees for our employees as well, to upskill and reskill. So yeah, I think short answer to that is yes.
Yeah. Sorry, I had to clarify that question, but yes, I think the question on that was, they were looking for that answer, which is, can I go down this micro-credential route instead of going through the PhDs and the masters and taking relevant skills right away and building my character, right? I've got different knowledge-specific skills.
Sorry, if I can clarify this, so I don't mean to belittle academicians and academics. I mean, my credentials will tell you I was in the academic world as well. But I think it's inevitable. I mean, you've got to see how the world is spinning now, right? And like I said, if bottom line is performance and how you perform at work, for businesses like us, it doesn't matter whether you do a 600-page PhD research, or you do 20 hours of a Coursera micro degree. As long as what you bring to the table in terms of performance is the same, we're fine.
And I think that is hitting home, and it's starting to come through, right? More and more individuals are starting to realize, hey, there's all these offerings out there that I can upskill myself. And what makes me unique is my combination of skills that may be exciting for Axiata or maybe exciting for Taloncorp or a different company, right? I could come from a computer science background and applying to finance or anything else, right? From that matter, Ms. Sukling, how do you see that, right? So if I'm a SME or if I'm a company coming to you asking for training, how do you adapt your programs? Like if I'm a trainer and I'm trying to learn from you, like what are you looking for in terms of now the new offerings that you're providing in this current environment, and how you're looking at it next year as well?
I think the topic on micro credentialing is something, it's a trend, and it is also meeting the needs of the current needs. I agree with Mr. Kamal's comment on, at the end of the day, when we send employers send employees for training, they eventually want to look at the performance after the training, whether after the training you have behavior change or improve in your performance or not. All right, so that is the one point. And in order to do that, the training programs cannot be programs where it is standard 5 days program and we want the learners to go through the 5 days because this is the 5 days program. So it has to be now in a small bite sizes, and it has to be in a format where the learners can choose what they want to learn in order for them to perform. It's not so much on, now I want to do PLC, I have to attend 5 days PLC program. No, it's like, PLC, I know about some part of this, but I need to only improve on a small fraction of it for me in order to perform my job. All right, so even the young learners are learning this way as well. I'm not sure about if your kids are what. When they ask you the mathematics question, they don't expect you to explain, why you have to do it this way. They want to go straight away to solve the mathematics problem, right? They want to know that method. You explain to me this method only. I don't need to know how to derive this method, right? So this is how the young learners learn. Therefore, I think for look at the learning trend of young learners and also the trend of the employers looking at their return of training investment, we training providers, maybe we need to look into provide them with the adaptive learning solution. Imagine a learners can sign up a program, and during that training program, the system are able to assess this person's competency level and extract or offer programs or offer content as and when this person go through the program, meaning there is no standardized content for every single participants, right? It is for when we talk about Industry 4.0, we talk about mass customization in manufacturing. Now, can we do mass customization for training? Okay, if a learner can decide on his own learning journal with the assistance of technology and data through what we call just now adaptive learning solution, imagine the time spent on training will differ from one person to another person. All right, because the system is able to assess my current competence and pull out relevant training programs for me to attend, and then assess me again. And probably I will take just 4 hours to complete, and maybe you just need 2 hours, and maybe another person will need 8 hours. So I think that will be what training we need to prepare ourselves to offer this type of service to our clients. The adaptive learning solution. Then the next question will be, on the claiming side, how do I claim from HRD Corp the levy? If I have 5 employees attending this program, 2 of them need 2 days, the other 5 need maybe 6 days. Then this mechanism, I think probably we also need to, HRD Corp also need to consider how do we put this agile and flexible claiming system for the training provider to be able to offer adaptive learning solution to the employees. Yeah.
I guess everyone's on this journey right now in terms of working together to try to build Malaysia as an ecosystem. There's so many things available. I'm also very wary of the time, and there's a whole lot of questions coming through. To the panelists, I think Mr. Siva and Mr. Murali have been helping the chat room as well in terms of all this information flow on where to go. To all the questions that are unanswered, we will do our best to get the panelists to answer that post the webinar and then send out an email to kind of curate the Q&A. We will also be releasing some poll questions right about now for our panelists to kind of answer. And I think just a couple of big takeaways from this perspective. Learning from actually all of you in a somewhat similar fashion is everything is changing. If you are a training provider, an education provider, anyone in the education line, you need to rethink and reimagine how your training is effective to the outcome that's required by employers or by the market. There's no such thing as a one-size-fits-all. It can be bite-sized, it can be longer, it can be very specific, it can be very broad. Don't narrow yourself to only thinking that it's only one type of training out there. there's a lot of resources made available by the likes of Taloncorp and HRD in terms of what's available to look out for, in terms of what to think about in terms of your training and what is actually being asked for. You've got companies like SHRVC taking this head on and modifying their programs and modifying their concepts that are being offered to the SME and the MNC as well. Please feel free to reach out in terms of trying to collaborate or see if there's other ways to work together. And you've got companies like Axiata who are mass adapting their skill sets and trying to change the way in terms of how training and development is coming. Like Mr. Kamal shared just now, they're challenging the trainers in terms of reimagining the programs being offered in terms of the different programs currently at play. Thank you very much for all your time here today. And I hope it has been very informative and helpful as an education provider and as a trainer in terms of all the various things coming. There's a lot more to talk about. I understand that we missed out on a whole lot of questions. Ms. Sukling, Mr. Siva, Mr. Ronnie, Mr. Kamal are fully in depth into the ecosystem in terms of all the little moving parts that are actually making up the big momentum that is actually happening. I would recommend everyone to reach out to the various panelists on the websites, Taloncorp, HRD, Axiata, SHRVC, in terms of all the various initiatives that they're doing. And I think that will kind of spur more questions and also kind of provide us some feedback as well in terms of what kind of programs that you like us to run as well. Just to shout out a little bit, we are organizing another webinar next week where we're focused on how to use a platform like Open Learning to be able to run training online and run programs in bite size or run programs that are more dedicated with badging, credentialing, and how we work with HRD as well in terms of the various initiatives that we are doing. I really like to invite you guys to the webinar. There'll be a lot of also promotions being offered on that day as well. So please feel free to click the link. And if you want to be contacted much faster, also please just do let us know and we can do that as well. Thank you very much to our panelists, Ms. Sukling, Mr. Siva, Mr. Ronnie, Mr. Kamal. I really appreciate your time here today. If there's anything that you'd like to say, one last comment to the trainers and to the education providers, I'll take it one step at a time. Mr. Ronnie, would you like to say a few words to the trainers and education providers?
Yeah, just a very quick message that I would like to share. Especially during this challenging time that we are facing, I would like to urge everybody, let's work together. Let's look into the bigger picture. The bigger picture now is that the whole country is facing this challenge which nobody has been ever prepared before. No training was given to us on how to face these challenges. So everybody, I hope we can all come together, HRD Corp being the administrator to the levy, the employers as the party that will be needing the training, and the training providers as the supplier to the expertise to the industry and so forth. Let's work together. Let's look into the bigger picture for us to ensure that the nation's training requirement still continues, regardless whatever the situation that we are facing. I would humbly request for everybody to put aside our personal interests. In every changes that we are facing, there will always be discomfort. Any changes of policy, there will always be get to use kind of thing. Yeah. So, but if you may consider, let's put those discomfort or get to use kind of thing aside first. Let's look into ensuring that the learning ecosystem in Malaysia does not be disrupted because of this pandemic. And I believe if we all can work together, HRD Corp, we are not a perfect organization. No one is. But when we come together, when we synergize our ability, your expertise, our capability, and so forth, I think in long run, we would be able to survive this. Thank you, Savin, and thank you to the organizer for inviting me and HRD Corp to this session. Thanks.
Thank you, Ronnie. Ms. Sukling?
Yeah, just to echo what Ronnie mentioned about, change. Change is what we need to. It's not something that we will wait now. I think as a training provider or trainers, we can't wait for a time where we have enough resources, where we have enough capital. Only we will start to transform our program. I think there must, as long as you have a clear plan on how do you want to deliver our content to the participants, and with that plan, we can then decide, what type of learning platform that we want to use. Probably you don't need a expensive platform, or probably you don't need the platform at all, but we need to start somewhere, to transform our program. We need to start somewhere to experiment which works for our program. Not all platforms fit all programs. So we need to identify and start small, check out for tools and platforms that meet your need. And most importantly, something that we have a reachable support locally, rather than buying something from overseas and you can't get support when you need to customize program and things like this. So start small, start to transform the program, and because the business, the employees, the participants are now ready, and they will attend more trainings after everything is settled down, right? So that's what I think, my little small advice from all the training providers and also the trainers.
Thank you, Mr. Sukling. Mr. Siva?
Yeah, probably from me, just 2 points only. I think learning and innovation go hand in hand. And skills has been an integral part of in the world of work, as it determines the quality of work. So lifelong learning and upskilling also ensures the employees' skill sets won't become obsolete, and more important, for their future needs as well. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Siva. Mr. Kamal?
Yeah, thank you, Sarvin. First of all, thank you to you and the organizers, as well as to the rest of the people on the panel. Honored to be on the panel with you. And just 2 things. One is I also want to make it very clear that I hope I didn't paint a rosy picture of how we're doing this in Axiata. It's a struggle. We have not come to this point without hard work. And there's a lot of advocacy work that we need to do in terms of getting people on board. My CEO keeps reminding me, Kamal, your KPI is not launch of programs, it's how many people take up the programs. So it is challenging. And if you can imagine the fact that we have 12,000 employees, and we probably have 5 generations working within the 12,000, right? So there are people like me who are baby boomers, and who are digital migrants, versus people who are in the workforce already, who are digital natives. So that's that challenge as well. And that will be also a challenge, I think, for training providers to also understand how do you cater for those people that are still struggling to turn on devices, for example, right? So those are, I think, but it's also, we are in a state where this is forced upon us. We've been talking about this for a few years, but 2020 early April came, and we were just forced to adapt to this, right? So it's action time now. It's awakened consciousness, if you will, in terms of this, where we are, right? So no more, I think, as we talk about this, it's also time for action, and that's what we're doing at Axiata, to take up the challenge. Thank you again to the rest of the panel. Honored to be with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kamal. I think the joke that kept going around in the early days, which is who pushed the digital transformation of your company, CEO, CTO, or COVID? I think this was the whole agenda here. And just to kind of borrow a word from Ms. Sukling just now, rapid customization for learning is also going to be really important. And how you think about it in terms of target market, in terms of type of learning, in terms of type of program, in terms of credentialing, assessments, all these things come into play. It's no longer just a one-size-fits-all. Thank you so much for your time, everyone. I really appreciate it. We will answer as many questions as we can in the post follow-up email. Just to let you guys know, we're also having another session this afternoon where we're more focused on the learners and the students in terms of how to think about their careers and how to think about their journey in terms of customization of their character in terms of the programs. So please feel free to join. It's completely free as well at 2 p.m. It's hosted by Open Learning as well. And again, if you would like to learn more about open learning as a technology to help your training company or your education business go online, We'll be happy to share with you as well. Thank you so much, everyone. Take care. Hope this has been really good for everyone. Okay, see you.